All right, so we're going to be going live right now, and let me just bring in anybody who may have signed up. I'm going to start the webinar. So we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to join on. I'm very honored to be joined today by Liz Tanner, who is the director of the Department of Business Regulation. Liz, good afternoon. How are you? Oh, wait, I think you're muted. There you
Yep,
go.
that was me. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks. Very happy to be here.
And I know we're waiting on Tony Silva, who's the Director of Administration for Governor McKee. I know he was running late and he may join us while we're going through the meeting. But I think, Liz, your department has been dealing with COVID since day one, especially when it comes to business rules and other things. Oh, wait a minute. It looks like Tony may be on. Hold on. He may be on as an attendee for some reason. Let me see if I can get him on. Okay, hold on. Let me promote him to a panelist.
There we go.
There we go. There he is. Director Silva, how are you, sir?
Hi, Mayor. I'm good. How are you? Hi, Director.
Hey, Tony.
Nice to see you. And well, just to start off again, I'm very honored to have the Director of Administration, Anthony Silva, Governor McKee's Director of Administration, and Liz Tanner, who's the Director of the Department of Business Regulation. And we know that we've been working through this thing over a year now, dealing with COVID-19, and businesses have been impacted. But as we've gone along and as we've gotten more and more vaccine in the arms, we've started to see restrictions ease up a little bit as we've progressed. So what I wanted to do is give the opportunity for the community to come in and listen to what the latest restrictions are, what is allowed, what is not allowed. And also we have a lot of great community organizations here in East Providence that really rely on their summertime events, a lot of feasts, there's some concerts, there's a lot of different things that go on in the community, as do others. But here in East Providence especially, we have a big population that really looks forward to this. And it's been a long time that they've gone without it. So we're hoping that you can shed some light on what can and can't be done as we start to prepare for summer feasts, Portuguese feasts, other feasts, and things like that. So who do we want to start with? Would we like Director Silva, would you like to say a few words before we kick off?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I probably should not be the person talking right now because I've been to so many Portuguese feasts in my lifetime. I was born and raised into Portuguese feasts and all over the state of Rhode Island, from Cumberland to East Providence to Bristol, where Director Tanner actually lives. So I'm very familiar with the culture, being Portuguese American myself. I know the value to the community, and certainly I know Governor McKee shares an interest with you, Mayor, and the East Providence community to ensure that we can have some type of a more normal return to the things that we love to do, right? And one of those things are attending the many feasts throughout the year. So having said that, I know Director Tanner certainly wants to work with you as well, provide the best guidance to keep people safe. I think everyone on this call knows that the governor went on the record recently that there would be music this year in the city of Newport. All right, so the folk festival will be operating. It won't be operating to capacity, and there will be some guidance provided to them in the form of testing and social distancing and wearing of masks and things of that nature. But there will be music this year, and we didn't have it last year, so we're getting back to some sense of normalcy. The last thing I want to say is I want to urge everyone to get a shot in their arms. As you probably know, I'm leading that effort as the governor's executive lead on COVID vaccinations. The more people who get vaccinations in their arms, the much more quicker we're going to be able to return to some type of normal business operation in this state. We know how important small businesses are to us. We know how important the local festivals are as well. So I'll turn it over back to you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to have some introductory remarks on behalf of our office.
Thank you, sir. We certainly appreciate the effort that Governor McKee and your team have put into getting vaccines. I understand that we're like fourth now in the nation for vaccinations of people 65 and older, I believe. So that's wonderful. And that was from being almost dead last. So you guys have done an incredible job, and we're happy to be part of that effort too. So, Director Tanner, share with us what you see happening. I get a lot of calls, a lot of questions about festivals and things of that nature. What can we tell our people in the community? How should they plan? What should they be doing to make this work?
Well, first I want to say, I'm so excited to be a part of this, and I thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it, particularly with Tony, to say, thank you to all of you. Running an event is hard under any circumstance. Nonetheless, under these circumstances, there's such a desire and a need, and everybody just wants to get out and do things. But we're almost there. We're almost there. We're just not quite there yet. So there's a really, we want people to go to these festivals, so we want them to feel comfortable and safe doing so. And so that's why we have these guidelines and these rules. And the establishments and the businesses that have been following them for over a year now have been so good. The compliance rates are well into the 90% for just about every single category. There are some things we hit 100% on every week. And the task force aims to really be more of an education and training task force. We're not out there to do any gotchas, and we're not trying to ticket people for no reason. We're really trying to focus on getting people to do their best, right? Because at the end of the day, compliance and making money is not the goal of this effort. Reducing the transmission of the virus is, right? So that's really what we're aiming to do is to give these parameters and these rules to, one, allow the economy to function, to allow people to want to go out to establishments, to go to fairs and festivals, and then also to be safe, right? We just don't want this virus transmitting easily. So with that, I will say there are, I've had a couple of these calls with folks, and I'll say that, there's a couple of bigger guidelines that everybody should be aware of. First and foremost, the later you have your event, the less likely you will have heavier restrictions, right? So if you can wait until July, August, September to have whatever event it is you're trying to do, there will be less and less restrictions as the summer goes by, assuming, fingers crossed, that the vaccination rate continues to go up and that everything is as we expect it to be. The second rule is that no matter what, masks will probably be required, right? I think we should just make sure that everybody understands that masks will likely be required for many more months to come. Knowing that sort of calms people. There should be zero expectation of having an event without a mask requirement. The second thing is some sort of capacity. The sooner you have your event, the lower the capacity is going to be permitted. The later you have your event, the larger the capacity. And again, we don't know where that line is of no limitations on capacity, but it is in the future, probably end of summer, beginning of the fall. And then same thing with social distancing. Right now the distancing is 6 feet between persons. We are expecting that to change. When, we're not quite sure. But if you have an event where people are going to be very close to each other, then you should really push that out as far as you can. But if you want to have something sooner rather than later, recognize that you need to try to maintain the social distancing. So those are sort of some overall guidelines and rules that we've been making sure everybody knows. Is that a good place to start, Mayor?
I think it is. And I think one of the things now at the state level, at the city level, we established a COVID safety review that anyone who's going to have an event will submit a plan, and we have a team that reviews it. Is that something that the state's doing also, or is that something you're letting the municipalities handle?
So for April and May, we're looking at a dual approval process between the municipalities and the state, because to be honest, we're to a certain extent discouraging, particularly indoor events. Indoor events far higher likelihood of some sort of transmission. We are certainly more tolerable for any kind of an outdoor event, but we recognize it's spring and it's going to be raining. So it's a dual approval process. Where we go after May is still unclear. I think it's clear we'll probably have some sort of approval process still for June. July, we're not quite sure about. But what we're really trying to do is take an inventory of all of the events that are happening so that we know what kind of questions we're getting so that we can address them. We have actually not received a lot of requests for event approvals, but you would do that through the DBR website. And Mayor, I'll have to put it in the chat, I guess, or however we can share that information. But on the DBR website, there's a link that you can click for events, and it asks you to fill out a basic form, and then you can submit it to us. If you don't have internet access, you can, I can give you a direct email address to send it to. If you have questions, we also have a phone number that you can direct it to. And then there's a template. So there's a template that kind of lays out, these are the things that you should look at for your event, and that's on reopeningri.com. And we can provide that template to you. So there's a ton of information out there. It's just a matter of going to the right place. So I would use dbr.ri.gov to submit your any kind of request or question that you might have. And then the Reopening RI has all the information that you have. The mayor held up a piece of paper. It showed a sort of, the information that is applicable for right now. And so, so those are the two places that you would want to go. And hopefully, Mayor, we can send an email out to all the participants to provide those websites to them.
We will. Right now, we've got 36 people on who are listening, so that's fantastic. I had questions about different things. Now we have a beautiful farmers market that we have here at our library. That's something that we'll be able to resume, I understand. We also had a question regarding having a food truck event. Is there any particular guidance, or have you had anybody ask you yet for clearance or guidance on that type of event? That you might
brought up two really good points. So if there is a retail scenario, right? So a farmer's market is, essentially a grocery store that's outside. They would follow the retail rules, which is just like your grocery store. So there's a distancing, there's a capacity, there are the regular rules that you would follow. And then same thing for a food truck festival. That's kind of like a restaurant, right? So you would try to follow the restaurant rules. And then if you were having a feast, I do live in Bristol, so I've been to plenty of them myself. And, there's very much multifunction at many of the events and festivals that are particularly associated with the church. And if there's a retail section, it would follow the retail rules. If there's an eating section, it would follow the restaurant rules. So, you would follow all those same things. And if there are any questions, you can certainly ask us about those specific items. But as far as a food truck, the issue there is the distancing outside and the maintaining of lines. So every event has its items, but they always come back to masks, distancing, and capacity.
And then the other thing, I know that the governor's big on, Tony, maybe you can speak to this. I know he's big on keeping some of the loosening of regulations that a lot of municipalities have put in place to allow for outdoor dining, outside dining, and things like that. So we, as a municipality, still will allow for that through executive order. We still will allow people to continue following all of the guidelines that we had put in place early on to allow for businesses to have outside dining and to expand on their capacity. There's going to be so just real quick, and I don't know if either one of you could point out to when we expect to hear any new updates. But the latest update we have is from March 19th. And I'll just read off a couple of things. It looks like for indoor dining, 75% capacity, right? And that would still require the 6-foot distance from other tables, correct? Bar areas, 75% capacity, up to 100 people indoors. Houses of worship, 75% capacity.
Can I just talk real quick about bars, Mayor? Do you mind?
Yes.
So the bars, there's still a lot of questions about bars because the rules have changed. If any restaurant or bar owner wants to have a conversation with us where we walk in and kind of just offer up advice on the best arrangement for their bar area, we are more than happy to do so, not in an inspection kind of way. Because I think there's a lot of questions about where the plexiglass goes and how many people can be there, if they're separated. There's a lot of particulars there. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, that would be important. What we're trying to prevent is the mingling and congregating, right? So if you think back to the way things were before COVID, you could belly up to the bar and order a drink. That is just not the way we want to function at this point, particularly with crowds and groups of people. And so instead, we're very much looking to there to be wait service, to be serving drinks. And in a bar area, there can be openings in the plexi to serve. And so we, if there's questions about that, we're more than happy to answer any from any kind of establishment owner.
Fantastic. And then retail, one person per 50 square foot, no limit outdoors. So that kind of goes along with what you said with the farmers market. And also, I guess, if you had a food truck event, it's like having as long as everyone keeps their space and it's outdoors, it's really the same thing as a farmer's market, kind of. Gyms and sports and rec, it says one person per 50 square feet, no limit outdoors. Personal services, such as haircuts and things of that nature, one person per 50 square feet, 6-foot spacing still. Venues of assembly. All right, this is where sometimes these issues come up. If you have a capacity of 50%, up to 250 indoors. So if you got a big venue of assembly, you can have up to 250 people in the building, correct?
What I'll say to that is there's a lot of confusion on a venue of assembly, and I'd rather deal with the question before me rather than kind of making general statements, because there is a lot of confusion, right? So, sometimes a space is so enormous, and when we say there's a rule of 100 people, that doesn't make any sense. There is some flexibility. So rather than making an unreasonable broad statement, I'd rather answer the direct question to what somebody has. So, don't hesitate. We have people who do this all day long who answer these questions. So whatever your particular situation is, please let us know. One of the things we're struggling with is you have indoor events, you have outdoor ticketed events where you can control the people in the space, and you have outdoor events that are not ticketed where you can't control people at all, like a parade or a fireworks situation. So we're trying to get our hands around how we're going to handle each one of those, and it does present its own set of challenges. So I'd much rather answer a specific question for a specific event.
That makes a whole lot of sense, actually, because everything's different. Every scenario is different. Funeral homes are up to 50% capacity, which I know, I've unfortunately had to attend some wakes recently, and the family members just appreciated the fact that they could see people and see their families and see their loved ones. Offices were up to 50% in person, remote still preferred, and then social gatherings up to 15 people indoors, 50 people outdoors. So if you're having a social gathering at your home, you can have up to 50 people outdoors as long as there's enough space. But once again, that comes, each situation is different, correct?
Yeah, and I will say that the number one way that we have seen this virus be transmitted is when people let their guards down in their own homes or in their backyards with their friends, right? So that's absolutely the main way that this virus has been transmitted. So when you're having that outdoor backyard barbecue, you still have to be safe. And particularly if you're having non-members of your household in your house with you, that's where you really want to be safe, because it's all about sharing the same airspace. I talk often about, as much as you try to get people to not be around your kitchen counter, that's where everybody ends up. And when you're standing around that kitchen counter, that you're all close to each other and you're sharing the same airspace. So that's really where you want to be particularly careful.
All right. So bottom line, reopeningri.com. If you are planning an event, you're planning a feast, you're planning some type of gathering where you think there's going to be people, reopeningri.com. There's a link where you can go on, submit your plan of action. They will review it. They'll give you good guidance. This way it protects you. You have something from the state that tells you that you're trying to follow all these particular guidelines, and you're going to do the best you can to make sure no one spreads this virus. Now, there's questions coming up. So Patricia's on. Patricia, if there's any questions that you want to read out and see if we can get an answer, that'd be great.
Let's see. Yes, thank you, Mayor. So there's one question in particular about 3-day, the feasts. As you both spoke about, there are many feasts here in the city of East Providence. And the question is, for a 3-day feast, like having it in the past, will anyone be able to have a drive-through pickup style feast, perhaps 1 or 2 days, not the live concerts to keep the crowds down, but at least food sales and pre-orders, like a park and wait pickup like they do at local restaurants?
I mean, from a state side, that is fine by us. I'm assuming there will be some sort of municipal approval process there, especially if there's like long lines of traffic that you're dealing with. But you're fine there. But I will say that, live performances are permitted if somebody wanted to have them. If you can still have the distancing, and particularly outside, like on a lawn or something, you could still do that. The issue there is having performers separated from the crowd. So ideally it's required, I should say, 14 feet from usually a singer or a performer between them and the guests. If it's a smaller space and you can't do 14 feet, if you have a plexiglass barrier, then it can go down to 6 feet between the guests and the performers. And ideally, the performers are separated as well. And then something to consider also is musical instruments. So a lot of musical instruments, when you breathe into the instrument, the air comes out, and then it's sort of just tossing itself out into the air. There are covers you can put over the musical instrument that will prevent any kind of, if the virus were to be there from going out. So musical instruments, want to consider something like that. And then something that has a basic transmission is microphones. So if you're using a microphone, you want to be careful about not just the holding of it, but you usually get your mouth pretty close to the microphone, so you want to try to make sure that gets wiped down in between uses. The things you learn in COVID, right? Like these are the things that I've learned through COVID. But microphones you want to be careful about, singing, and then even musical instruments, all places that you can still do it. You just have to be smart about it. I mean, rarely do we say no to something because there's almost always a way to make it happen. You just have to be willing to invest the time and energy to make it happen.
Thank you, Director Tanner. Now, how about an outdoor ticketed event? The question is, will we need to take temps, ask COVID questions, and take contact information?
So ticketed events, it's about the screening, right? So it's up to you really to a certain extent. As far as screening, as of right now, posters do allow you to pass an inspection and receive approval for an event if you use posters that talk about not being sick coming into an event. But I still see plenty of people who are doing temperature taking, and that's okay too. If that gives you comfort, particularly for an inside event, you might want to consider doing so. Was that the whole question, Patricia? Did I miss anything?
And then collecting contact information as we've been doing throughout the pandemic at restaurants and so forth.
So if the event is having a food scenario, then there's that requirement would still be there if they're using the tables associated. But if they're just out on the lawns using their own seating or taking the food and then walking away from it, there's not any kind of contact tracing requirement there.
Excellent, thank you. Now, folks are dying to dance. Will dancing be allowed if there's music specifically at an outdoor event? People want to boogie.
So that's a great question. The answer for anything in the next few months is probably unclear. Again, later on in the year, the better. We are exploring the concept of pod dancing for certain weddings to be able to do pod dancing, and that's essentially, by households and allowing them to go up. But unfortunately, when you're dancing, you're very often, it's like going to the gym and, people take their masks off. Very often they may have been drinking, things like that. So dancing still makes us nervous. That's one I would want to know the date of an event, how many people are at the event. That one's a little trickier to answer.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question for Chief of Staff Silva, but there is a question on Facebook on COVID passports. Is there anything you can tell us on COVID passports? Are they coming?
Chief?
It's a great question, Patricia, and we're getting lots of those questions daily. We are discussing the potential for a COVID passport. As you know, it's being discussed in other states around the country. Some of the states have just flatly denied and decided that they weren't going to have them. Other states are moving ahead with it. We are looking at that. I don't have an answer for you today, and I apologize, but I think we will have an answer either way in the very near future. We certainly want to be able to protect those people who have had the vaccination and be able to get them in and out of venues with ease and not potentially having to take the COVID test before they go in. So these are some of the things we're working with the Department of Health as well as the CDC on. I hope that answers your question because I didn't give you a yes or a no, and I apologize for that.
Well, I guess the question is maybe or not just yet.
I think the question is maybe, and we certainly are looking at it. I guess the most important thing you can take away from this is that we are definitely looking at that.
And I think if anything, one thing, again, going back to the later on in the season, the less likely that's going to be required. The sooner you want to have something, the more likely it might be required.
So what I'm getting from this conversation, which is wonderful news, I think, is that there's no reason why we can't have a controlled event as long as we ensure that we keep certain distance, we keep certain protocols in place. If you want to have a feast, if you want to have any type of a festival, a music festival, a folk festival, whatever it may be, we can do it. Just have to do it with certain things in place. And you and your team will review the safety action plan and give guidance, either say yes or no, but you're not looking to tell people no, you're looking to give them guidance so that they can go ahead and hold their event safely. So that's reassuring, I think, to hear that from you and the Chief of Staff. Patricia, if there's any more questions, just now is the time.
There are, Mayor. There are a lot of questions coming in both here and on Facebook, and some that come to our office that I thought could get answered as well. This is specifically a family event. So if a family event and the folks have received 2 vaccines, can they all stop wearing a mask? So
Well, the answer to that is if you are in public, if you're in your own house, obviously that's different. But when you're saying family event, I'm assuming means many families. So if it's an event with families, no, everybody absolutely has to wear a mask. We still have a significant portion of our population that is unvaccinated, and the evidence still isn't 100% clear whether vaccinated people can deliver the virus to an unvaccinated person. It's a national, it's a planet question that's out there, right? When can we stop using the mask? And the mask usage, I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Not for many, many months. So it's all about protecting the other people. We are very concerned right now about our youth. As adults get vaccinated, there are, the variants are much stronger. We are expecting many of our youth to get sick. So we're reaching a point now where we're protecting our youth by wearing our masks.
Thank you, Director. Now, this is something all 3 of you are very much familiar with, Portuguese procession. So the religious processions through city streets. Will they be allowed to hold a procession to the church this summer?
So again, a municipal decision, but from my perspective, yes, I definitely control, definitely distance, still wearing a mask, but yes, you certainly can. One thing I wanted to bring up about feasts and events and things like that, things that I'm always pointing out is it's rarely the actual reason that you're there for something that's the problem. It's far more about the ingress and egress, the entrances and the exits where people kind of bottleneck and get all clustered up together. It's also very much about the bathrooms, right? Are you frequently cleaning your restrooms? Is it just one porta-john and there's people in there and the air's not getting circulated? The cleaning of frequently touched items is particularly an issue that I speak of often. And then the ticketing, can you do contactless ticketing or just have something that somebody shows rather than the ticket takers having to touch things over and over and over again. So it's not just about the event, it's all those other things you have to worry about too. Oh, and the parking, so is everybody on top of each other? And you also need to worry about the volunteers, because it's almost always volunteers that work at these items, right? And so it's not just the guests that you're worrying about, you want to protect your volunteers from getting sick as well. And so if they are face to face with somebody touching things over and over and over again, that increases the likelihood that your volunteers are going to get sick, and you're not going to get any volunteers to help you with your event. So you just want to be really careful and think about not just your guests, but your volunteers as well.
So for any of my friends out there who are involved with the Portuguese social clubs, no sopas do Espírito Santo. We're not going to pack in 1,000 people into a tight little space to have the soups. Those can be tough. Those are probably the ones, unless, of course, you can do it safely. But I know that historically, there's always been a backup and a huge line. People are dying to get in there for the Portuguese soups, and those can be difficult to control unless we come up with a great plan and we say, look, we're going to be setting up tables at distance, and we're going to be scheduling you. Come up with a system where you give people a ticket where you schedule them to come in between 9 and 10, and then the next group comes in between 11 and 12. There's always ways to work around things. It's being creative about it. Sorry, Director, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's a great example, Mayor. That's it. Again, nobody's out to say no. We're out to try to find ways for you to make it happen.
So let me just jump in here for a second. This morning, the governor and I were on a call with Dr. Fauci, and he said something I think that stuck with me this morning, and I've mentioned it a few days in calls and the conversations I've had with people. And that is, we're at a point now where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We really are. But the only way we get to really grab that light and wrap our arms around it, and that's getting back to something normal, is right now we are extremely, extremely cooperative and working with each other to ensure that we get to that light. So if you look back at the Christmas time and Thanksgiving time period, we had a spike in cases, right? We're seeing, and then we had the 3-week pause, if you remember, back in December, and the cases came back down. Now we're getting into the warmer weather. People want to do things, they want to get out of the house, and our vaccination rate is 4th or 5th in the country right now. So we're getting more shots in the arms of people than any other state, except maybe 3 or 4. We're right close with them, and that's because of people like you, Mayor, because, you know, you've stepped up to the plate and you've had your COVID clinic over there, and you've stepped up to the plate and you want to do a regional clinic over on Taunton Avenue. And we have other many municipal leaders that are doing similar things that you're doing. But we can't stop now. I can't emphasize to everyone how important it is that if you're having a festival and you have plenty of volunteers, this year you want to have volunteers that are probably, you know, like, they're like the COVID police. I really don't want to use that term, but they're the COVID officer, they're the compliance officer. You might have a dozen of them or more, and their job is to wear a yellow vest and walk around and remind people to social distance, and, you know, please put your mask on. People are going to take their masks off. They're going to forget to put them on. Maybe you've got an extra couple of hundred masks on hand to hand people, so when they show up, it's a nice courtesy to do that. And when you have those processions, and God, I've been to tons of those in my lifetime, right? People tend to gather right on the street corner. You come down the street, there's nobody on either side of the street, but when you get to that corner, there's 100 people at the street corner, right? And that's just something that human nature, that's what we do. And that's where you want that COVID officer to be spreading people out. It's not that we want to discipline anyone or punish anyone. We want to protect people. And most importantly, we want to protect the economy of our state. After the most important thing is the health and safety of people. But we're on track to do that. But right now, we want to protect getting our economy open by keeping people healthy. So I think if we all work together to do that and really concentrate on the fact that we're still in a pandemic, people are still getting sick. As the director just said to you, you know, the numbers right now are showing that in the 20 to 29, the 30 to 39, and even in that early 40s, that's where a lot of the increased infections are occurring right now. And that's where most of our people who are being hospitalized are coming from, that younger group. And God, we don't want to lose one more person in this state to COVID. And unfortunately, we will, but we want to keep it at a minimum.
Thank you, Director. Great advice, and I think you're right on point. This is all about making sure we get to that finish line. And I know it's inconvenient, but it's nice to see that we're not where we were last year. I mean, we've come a long way, and it's nice that we are able to at least have the idea and the ability to have these events under control with guidelines in place. And I think if everyone cooperates and works together, we can have a wonderful summer this year and a wonderful you know, fall. So there's a lot of great things going on. Now we also have the Bow Point Concert Series, which is something that we are very proud of here in East Providence, and I think that they may be able to fall into these type of guidelines and be able to follow some of these guidelines. So we're excited to see if we're going to see some music on Bow Point this year. Patricia, are there any other questions? I don't want to keep the directors any longer than I have to. And
Yes,
I want to
we do.
answer as many questions as we can.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do. And thank you, Chief, and thank you, Director. There is a question. Is there an opportunity for a streamlined statewide application advisory / for street closures and a safe use of public spaces, specifically for small businesses? For example, expansions into the parking lot, parallel parking places, vendor stands, etc.
You know, I'll say that, you know, the complication there is there's state roads versus municipal roads, you know, and so it's, you know, we can't approve for each other. But I have not heard any complaints about the system that is functioning right now, you know, especially in the beginning when we were doing the outdoor dining. There was a desire to do something similar, to have one place to send all outdoor dining requests. But our 39 municipalities, I mean, they stepped up, you know, they processed those applications very quickly and they got them out. So I would think that there should not, that you would get the same response from the municipalities for that as well. If you're not, and there's a need to help, you know, with whether it's you want me to push Bob to get him to do something, I'm more than happy to do so. But you know, if there's other municipalities that are causing troubles, we can certainly do that. But we didn't see it last year with the outdoor dining, and I'd expect not to see it this year with street fairs and festivals. I just don't think you're going to have any kind of a logjam that would warrant a higher level of bureaucracy to run everything through the state that would go to the municipality.
Thank you, Director. One last question. This is, well, actually two. This is in regards to weddings, and I think you may have addressed this already, Director. I attended a wedding reception at an indoor venue. The venue told the family of the couple that they would not encourage dancing, but they wouldn't stop it. Does this policy still apply? I think you mentioned the pod dance.
Yeah, so we talked about the pod dancing, and there's a lot of weddings that they don't want to have the weddings if you can't do some dancing. So we are trying to come up with creative ways. Again, the later you can have your wedding, the better. So I would encourage you to try to push it out towards the end of the summer, and there's a far higher likelihood that you'll have much more of a normal wedding that you would want to have.
Great, thank you. There's a point of note that, oh, go ahead, Mayor.
If I could just give a shout out to St. Francis Church. They are doing take-home soupers this year. They just wanted to let us know, if anyone was listening, take-home soups. And I know that a lot of the other organizations did the same thing, last year to help bring a little joy into people's lives during this whole pandemic. So they actually coordinated some great workarounds with all of the stuff that was going on, and still made it a festive event. So, and I noticed some of the clubs, for instance, Trinity Club, they were the first one out of the box. They did a takeout venue, and people came in and were able to get some feast food at the takeout. And I know that they had a great success, and it worked out great for everybody. So there's still those options. If you still want to just do it that way, that's an option. If you want to expand upon what you did last year and get a little bit more of a normal type setting, we can just put together your plan, get it to the DBR, they'll review it, and they'll give you the green light or some advice. Patricia, I think we're running up on 40 minutes. I see a question here from Mr. Andrade regarding vaccinations. He says that he's eligible for the vaccine at the VA. The hours don't work with his schedule. Based on that eligibility, can he receive the vaccine in EP? I would think the regional pod is opening up to 50 and over. And I would think that if you are eligible in the VA, that it wouldn't be a problem to have you come to the regional pod. We're not going to turn you away, that's for sure. Okay.
I can tell you, so here's my sticker. I got my first shot today. Yesterday, I went online at 8:15 in the morning, and there was openings at the Stop and Shop in East Providence. I was too slow, and I lost my opportunity. So, and then I did the exact same thing probably 2 hours later. I found another one at another, I think it was the CVS in Bristol, in East Providence, and I was too slow and I didn't get it. So I learned my lesson that when you see an opening, if that's the one you want, you need to take it right away, don't wait. But I was able to, by mid-morning, find an appointment, and I got my shot today. So literally 24 hours later. It's just a matter of patience and a little bit of luck until you can get your appointment. But I went in there today. It was an extremely efficient process. I was at the Saconaset facility in Cranston, and I was in and out of there, and it was very well done. Didn't even feel it, so which was really nice, because I'm a big baby when it comes to needles. But you just have to keep at it on the website. And if you don't have internet access, there are other ways you can get on, phone numbers that you can call, and I'm sure the mayor can connect you with all that information. We
have a hotline set up, but you can also call 211 and they will help you register if you need some help. 211 is an easy number to remember, and by all means, take advantage of it. I think I don't see any more questions. Patricia, do you have any questions offline that I may not be on here?
No, sir, none on Facebook. We've answered them all. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Well, I want to thank Chief of Staff Anthony Silva, who is doing an incredible job in that role. And really, I want to thank Governor McKee. I think he's doing, and he's been there a short while, and he's really had a positive impact on the whole vaccination process. We're very proud here in East Providence to be, we'll be announcing formally through a press conference tomorrow that we will be hosting a regional pod with the help of our East Bay partners to run that facility. So we're very excited about that. And the whole goal really is to get more vaccine availability to all of our residents. We don't want people to feel that they can't get the vaccine. We're going to do all we can working with our community partners to get those, because we do have a high density community designation for 02914. All that means is that it's a region of the city that people don't get the vaccine opportunity, or they have higher levels of infection. So we are going to work with our community partners to try to target those residents, to make it available for them, make it easy for them to get it. So it's been thanks to Tony Silva, Governor McKee, and Liz Tanner. You've been incredible, and I know you get bombarded. Your office must get bombarded daily with all kinds of questions. Before we go, I see one question or two questions. I see just some thank yous. We appreciate everyone who took the time to listen. We had, I think, 33 residents who were on listening here, and we had about 20 some odd on the Facebook feed. So we really appreciate that. And we'll put this on Facebook so it kind of replays itself and people can listen to it again. Any last words?
I would just like, oh, go ahead, Liz.
Well, I was just going to say, please get vaccinated. The quicker you get vaccinated, the more we get back to normal, whatever our new normal will be.
Okay, so I won't say that. What I will say to there were a lot of folks on this call, please use our office as a resource. The director of DVR, Liz Tanner, is always available. She's always reachable. I'm always available 24/7. If you can't find my cell phone, call Mayor Da Silva. He'll give it to you. Mayor, you can give it to anybody who needs it, please.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And accessibility is what you guys are all about. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And look, it's not even 5 o'clock. We cut this meeting quick. We got the information out there. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you out there. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.